Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Access Podcast. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are reacting to the San Francisco 49ers Week 1 30-7 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers as the San Francisco 49ers annihilate, demolish, crush the terrible towel-waving Steelers out there at Heinz Field, now called Acurature Stadium in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Folks, football's back. Week 1 has come and unfortunately gone, but it has come and gone with a win on the behalf of the San Francisco 49ers. We have talked all offseason long about this moment, and even last week or earlier on Thursday and Friday, we talked about how this was a big game for San Francisco. This was a monumentous occasion to come out and prove thyself in week 1 of the NFL season to jumpstart their quest for the 6th Lombardi Trophy in franchise history. And, well, they did that on Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time, again, winning 30-7. And from the get-go, from the jump, the Niners came to play. One of the, I don't want to say concerns, but one of the things I pointed to and say Mike Tomlin's always going to have his Pittsburgh Steelers ready, and that hasn't always been the case for Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. Well, on Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers, that was the case. San Francisco, whether it was offense or defense, looked like a well-oiled machine. They looked like they had not missed a beat from all the way back in January. They looked like one of the elite teams in the NFL. And leaving week 1 now and moving on to, week 2 of the NFL season after Monday night's game against Buffalo and New York, or following that game, we can look at how the games played out and say you have Philadelphia, who barely escaped New England with a win. You have the Dallas Cowboys, who, again, just, you want to talk about a shellacking, a butt kicking, took it to the New York Giants on all fronts. And San Francisco, they took it to the Pittsburgh Steelers. San Francisco looked like, from the morning to afternoon slates on the NFL schedule, they looked like the best team in football. Now, the Dallas Cowboys obviously, have their hand waves saying, look at us right now. But San Francisco looked like a top 2 roster in the NFL, and they looked like they're ready to embark on this journey for the 6th Lombardi Trophy. But also, they look like a team that is focused, ready to play. And again, from kickoff on Sunday, made it a point to stick it to Pittsburgh. In that first drive, Eric Armstead was phenomenal, pushing the pocket against Pittsburgh's offensive line, and Drake Jackson a sack early to get the 3 and out and give the offense good field position to come out and make a statement early. You can tell that the offense and even the defense, there was this almost confident desperation of, while yes, every play matters, we know we can control this game. And if we come out early and make a statement, come out early and shut the Pittsburgh crowd down, that's one thing I love about our defense here in San Francisco, is that not knowing how Steve Wilkes and his defense were going to perform in this game in his Niners debut, letting him and his defense roll out there and control the ball from the get-go. I don't know why Pittsburgh took the ball on the opening kickoff. You would assume, it being your hometown, you'd want your defense to make a statement and kind of stop the opposing offense. But no, that was San Francisco's job. That was San Francisco's task, and they did just that, forcing a 3 and out and looking dominant early. Then, of course, Brock Purdy gets the football and good things happen. But even then, that first drive for San Francisco wasn't going perfectly on offense, but Shanahan, and I love this, being aggressive early. What do you have to lose in week 1 of the NFL season with this defense by going for it early on 4th down in this game? Shanahan early, again, going for it on 4th down, showing that there's this confident desperation of, we know we can beat you. And if we do indeed beat you on 4th down, we are going to be able to control this game early and from the get-go, and also be able to annihilate you, ruin your confidence, and take away any momentum you think you might have coming into this game. I'm someone who came into Sunday wanting to give Pittsburgh credit, wanting to give the Steelers at least a little bit of kudos. You never want to come in and say, Niners going to kill their opponent 30-7. And this game could have been far, far worse, mind you. But you want to give your opponent credit. You want to give them, the at least a chance. And San Francisco, from again the jump, really never gave Pittsburgh a chance. And I'm not going to say it's different from previous games. I do think that Kyle Shanahan and the Niners had that killer instinct in them, but I want to see that more often. This team is going to be good. We know they're going to be good. They should be one of the final four teams in football, and it was almost like they had a point to prove. Almost like this awful, this horrible long off season of constant quarterback 2, quarterback 3 talk. Trey Lance then traded, Nick Bosa almost not signed prior to week 1. Many fans, even including myself, had Nick Bosa not been signed prior to this game and missed this game, would have called this one of the worst off seasons in recent San Francisco 49er history, knowing what this team is trying to accomplish this year. And it was almost like the minute Nick Bosa signed, all of that stuff went out the window. All of the conversations of Trey Lance and, Nick Bosa not being signed, this cloud lifted and the sun began to shine again. And you can tell the way Fred Warner reacted to Bosa signing and the way Trent Williams talked about, the team could feel Nick Bosa's absence, having him back. It's almost like they were baptized and brought back to a renewed life. And that was called week 1 of the NFL season of let's go out there and let's just really kick some ass. And they did that. And again, from drive 1, Brock Purdy marches them downfield. Brandon Aiyuk a touchdown. Burns, Patrick Peterson. Oh, the tells. The Niners offense, Brock Purdy has so many tells, Patrick Peterson. Well, I can tell you this, Patrick Peterson. You're far beyond your prime. You were a good player, mind you. Really good player at LSU for the Cardinals. Someone Brock Purdy looks up to, or at least used to, when he used to live in Arizona. You're far past your prime. The tells that the San Francisco 49er offense may have had didn't help you today. Gave up 2 really insane touchdowns, one easy one, an incredible play from Purdy and Aiyuk. But the tells San Francisco's offense had, like I said coming into this week, even if they have any, they're not going to help you. This offense is too good, and they showed that today. Brock Purdy being a prime example of that, finishing 19 for 29, only 220 yards through the air, had 20 yards on the ground, I believe, had 2 touchdowns. And Brock Purdy became the first quarterback in NFL history in each of his first regular season starts, to throw 2+ touchdowns in each of those games. So Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, 8 starts in his entire NFL career, continues to make and break records. Just, do you believe now? Like, we spent the entire offseason, and I get it. Look, it's week 1. You're not winning a championship in week 1, right? The Steelers aren't going to be a bad team because they lost in week 1. The Niners have been in games like this the previous years, losing to the Bears last year and almost losing to the Lions 2 years ago. It's not like week 1s define your season, but for San Francisco, I really do think it does give us a depiction, a good picture of what their season should look like. Now, you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and their edge rushers and their defensive line, and they have some stars, Micah Fitzpatrick. Their offense does as well. George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, who unfortunately got hurt. Najee Harris, at least on paper, they have the ability to stay in a lot of games, and they certainly will win probably at least 8 of them, if not 9 of them this year. But San Francisco, we talked on paper that they should crush the Steelers, and they did. This is one of the few games you can point to and say on paper it translates to on the field. But again, for San Francisco, it really did feel like this was, this was a kind of a preview of how the season should go for them when it comes down to just coming out from snap one from the kickoff and just you are better than everybody. With your roster construction, prove that, and San Francisco did on Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, going back to Brock Purdy, one thing I love about Brock Purdy is that, one, if you talk about him, you're talking crap, you're saying he has tells like Patrick Peterson. He's never going to initiate the kind of crap talk and the back and forth of talking smack to an opponent. He's never going to initiate it. But if you watch his post-game press conference, he asks the media, "Was that second touchdown also on Patrick Peterson?" Oh, okay, cool. Okay. Like, he's someone who's never going to initiate that, but if you speak his name, speak on him, he's going to make after he beats you, after he has a good game against you, he'll just rub that dirt in a little bit in your face and say, how does that taste? And I love that. I love that Brock Purdy has some attitude to him. And, there's so many nicknames for him. There's, Big Cock Brock and there's many others along those lines. I call him Brocky P, and it's pretty good. Whatever you want to call him, or whatever motto or nickname you want to use, all I can say is this: he's the real deal, and he's going to make he is. Now, his offense around him certainly helps. Brandon Aiyuk was great today. 8 catches, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. And look, one of my friends, Alan Stiles, 95.7 The Game, we were hosting the post-game show, and he said, it's almost like someone TiVo'd Brandon Aiyuk's routes, because every time you see him, it's the exact same slant pattern or crossing pattern, and he's always 5 yards open, no one around him. And that really shows or goes to how well Shanahan's scheme is, but also just how good Brandon Aiyuk is. He's wanting to get paid big money, and at least in week 1, he's shown his worth and value. Again, leading the team in targets, 2 touchdowns, and arguably one of the best catches, or early candidate for catch of the year, over Patrick Peterson. Brock Purdy, back shoulder, fade to Aiyuk in the end zone for about, 15, 20 yards. The best play of the day outside of Christian McCaffrey's long touchdown and Talanao Hufanga's near pick 6 pitch that was called back. So many good plays in this game for the 49ers, because look, so much happened. It felt like from the beginning of the game, it felt like that the minute San Francisco stepped on the field, the game was over. And as fans, we don't feel that. We don't know that. But you can tell from Jump Street, as soon as San Francisco got the 3 and out and then put up 7 points, you said this game could get ugly quick. And it could have been uglier than the final score depicts, 30-7. But going back to Brock Purdy, there was some bad on the day, a couple fumbles. One, he miraculously caught or picked up on his butt or his upper butt cheeks and pinned to his body. That wasn't called a lost fumble and recovered by Pittsburgh. If Mark Sanchez's butt fumble or fumble of the buttocks is how I'll call it, what does Brock Purdy get called? Is that the butt recovery, the buttock recovery, the double cheeked up recovery, whatever you want to call it? It was an amazing play, but there was some bad in there, and there certainly was some things you can point to and say, okay, Purdy can't fumble twice, and you can point to and say, let's change that. You can't turn the ball over, and thankfully, it didn't happen for him, but there could have been some issues in this game. And you say, that's reminiscent of a quarterback that was here last year and the previous 4 years prior to that. But Brock Purdy through the air was great. The more he plays, and I felt this from last year, after the Tampa Bay game, most likely was when this kind of clicked for me. But for many people out there, they aren't bought in yet. But I think now, looking at how good Brock Purdy played in this game, mind you, week 1, I get that. There are so many games and weeks to go to, change and alter your season. But Brock Purdy, every single game, looks like the same consistent player, making big play after big play, finding open receivers. The Brandon Aiyuk touchdown early in the game, yes, but also the back shoulder in the end zone where Aiyuk goes up and gets it. It's an amazing play, but there's other things in there. Other examples of Brock Purdy while yes, his skill set might not tell you he's an elite quarterback, and I'm not saying he's top 10 by any means, but I think he's growing or kind of rising up the levels. I just saw Daniel Jones get paid $40 million and look like booty. He just looked awful against the Cowboys. They scored no points. Now, Brock Purdy is better than Daniel Jones, and he's getting paid top 10 quarterback money. I'm looking at Lamar Jackson's struggle this week, and again, it's week 1, but Joe Burrow, he got benched in the fourth quarter because they were losing so bad to the Browns. Brock Purdy comes in and just annihilates, looks confident, and you can see him on first downs pointing and making the defense aware and really being a leader on the team. And Brock Purdy's so confident, but also he's someone you can look at and say he's a leader. He's someone who trusts his own abilities, but also what he does on the field. Again, it's not Mahomes-like, it's not Josh Allen-esque, but there are some elite things that he does. And I think one of them is evading pressure. Brock Purdy in the pocket is so good at evading pressure, whether it's in his strong side or his blind side. There's a play today where Minkah Fitzpatrick, an all-pro Pro Bowl safety, is rushing at him unblocked, and Purdy has this sense to feel the pressure, spin around him, evade him, run to his left, and find Deebo Samuel for a first down. That's stuff elite quarterbacks do. Those are things that we as Niner fans hated seeing Russell Wilson do here, 6-7 years ago during the height of the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom era. It's stuff where you said, I hate playing against you because you're so freaking annoying because you're so dang good. And Purdy has those skills. I'm not saying he's Russell Wilson in his prime. What I'm saying is he possesses things like Russell Wilson used to annoy us with and make us say, I hate you, Russell Wilson, and hoping they would not let him cook during those times in Seattle. But also, there's one where it's 3rd and 7, and the pocket breaks down, and Purdy kind of jumps his way through it like a little bunny, runs up, and just finds Aiyuk for a first down, again, evading pressure and avoiding elite edge rushers like Highsmith and, of course, TJ Watt being the best one in the game, if not Nick Bosa or Myles Garrett. Then you have, and this to me, I think is the biggest one, where it looks like it's kind of a Kittle screen or something like that. Purdy hikes the ball, sees the defender on his one read play, jump the route, pump fakes, then finds Christian McCaffrey for a 7-yard gain up the middle. Now, on paper, that looks like it's a nothing play. But watching it live, seeing Brock Purdy pump fake the defense, almost stop himself mid-throw, adjust, and find the open receiver for a near first down. If this was 3-4 years ago, even 2 years ago in San Francisco, it's probably a pick six. And we're sitting here saying, oh my goodness, it's 20 or 14-7. And Pittsburgh's in this game earlier than they would have been had Brock Purdy not been a quarterback. We've seen Jimmy Garoppolo play quarterback against Pittsburgh, and it wasn't pretty in 2019. Now, the offense has changed a lot personnel-wise, so I won't hold that against him. But even then, that's a play the elite quarterbacks make in the NFL. And Brock Purdy, while his stat line would not show you or tell you he was elite, while the offense around him, because, and let's be honest here, Brock Purdy, well, yes, in this offense is the best Brock Purdy will ever see. In this offense, he is going to be surrounded by the best weapons and also the best offensive mind in the NFL and Kyle Shanahan. But also, because of all that, because they're getting out to huge leads early and kind of, honing things back in later, running the football so much to kind of ice these games out, Brock Purdy's stats are being hindered by this. Brock Purdy could have easily had 300 yards in this game. Brock Purdy, even last year against Tampa Bay, could have had a higher number of yards and touchdowns had he played the entire fourth quarter, or had Kyle Shanahan and the Niners, like Dallas did against the Giants this week, keep going and keep putting the hammer down. Brock Purdy is almost in an offense that, well, yes, maximizes his abilities, also takes away from the, the high-end numbers you think he would have or any quarterback in this offense would have. Like Brock Purdy, 220 yards, 19 for 29, 2 touchdowns. It's fine. It's solid, but it could have been 330 yards. Like I'm not saying this to hate on anybody. Like Brock Purdy, great quarterback. Kyle Shanahan, awesome. I'm not complaining one bit here. We put up 30 points against one of the best defenses in football, if not a top 10 unit. And look, and it could have been worse, is my point. Like this game could have been so much uglier. Brock Purdy could have had a better game from a stat perspective. And I think he's still just not getting the respect he deserves. Players get how good he is. Former players get how good he is. But we spent an entire offseason talking about, is Trey Lance, should he get a job? Should he have a chance? Kyle Shanahan said, are you serious? Do you see this guy? This is my quarterback. And I think today, Brock Purdy in one game this NFL season has validated that real deal quote Kyle Shanahan touted out there during the offseason. There are some things that you can point to outside of Brock Purdy. And really, if you want to stay with Brock Purdy for a second, when he's on a pile and his arm is in the pile, you're saying, someone get off Brock Purdy. Why is his arm stuck in that fumble pile? Someone get him out of there. And there are a couple of times in this game where his arm or his fingers hit a defender and you said, is he okay? Is he okay? And I think we're learning as he continues to play, he's fine. And I think going into week 2 against the Rams, I would like to think he's licking his chops watching that defense. This Niners team is not the Seattle Seahawks, and my goodness, you give Shanahan McVay and his eyes turn red. It could be ugly. That's a week away. We'll get there when we get there, but right now, Brock Purdy having a great week 1 and an efficient and decisive week 1 for Brock Purdy. But again, Brandon Aiyuk, not only the catching, again, 8 catches, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns, leading the team in targets, but also an amazing block downfield on Christian McCaffrey's 65-yard touchdown run. And this is a team that is supporting each other, that they know every single snap matters. They know that every single person, all 11 players have to do their job for this team to succeed. They know their goal. It's not week 1, it's week 22 in the Super Bowl. They know that their goal does not stop and end here. And you can tell that from whether it's defense or the offense, that every single person was playing their part the majority of the game. And I think Brandon Aiyuk and Christian McCaffrey are 2 of the bigger examples of that. Christian McCaffrey, not too many passing catches today, but 22 carries on the ground, 152 yards, almost 7 yards a carry, had the big 65-yard touchdown run. And I think we're getting to a point now where he has to stay healthy still, and we'll see his usage rate go up and down throughout the season. But Christian McCaffrey, like the plethora of picks that were given up for him, might still be a bargain. Like he's so good, and just unlocks so much in the offense. We saw it last year. We're going to see it again this year, but every time you watch him play, it just amazes me where there were so many times in this game where I sat back and saw CMC get touched by defender, 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and said, oh, it's nothing there, play over, and he gets 5 yards. And you're like, how did he do that? Like, what just happened? He's so elusive. He had an amazing spin move on a player when he got that big run. And you're like, oh my God, Christian McCaffrey, is there anything that you can't do? Is there anything that this, 27-year-old man that's being paid, probably underpaid, mind you, although he's being paid a lot of money, probably underpaid for how much he means to the offense. Christian McCaffrey just so amazing. And to give you some stats here, Christian McCaffrey led all running backs in rushing yards at this moment, 152, leads running backs with 56 yards over their expected amount, and also faced 8-man boxes 68% of the time. We've talked about plenty of times on the podcast, and really since the 2019 season against Kansas City in the Super Bowl, defenses are going to stack the boxes against San Francisco, knowing they like and they flourish in the intermediate over the middle of the field with their passing game, Christian McCaffrey almost negates anyone trying to do that. And I think for Kyle Shanahan, knowing that you have this player in Christian McCaffrey that, you know, when a team like Dallas, who again just killed the Giants, a team like the Jets, who are a great defense, Philadelphia, who I know struggled in week one, but still got a victory, they're expected to have a really good defense still and, want to come out and make a statement against San Francisco late in the year when the two teams meet up. But when you're playing against the elite level defenses, having someone like Christian McCaffrey where you point to the offense and say, even in their weakness, you can say, even when a defense tries to, scheme against their biggest asset of, intermediate passing game, over the middle passing game, you just say, oh yeah, this is Christian McCaffrey. We have Christian McCaffrey, so it doesn't matter. It almost negates and cancels out anyone trying to scheme against, their so-called, strength or so-called, they can't push the ball down the field. That's where Christian McCaffrey comes in and says, we'll beat this then. He's almost like, he is an X factor, but he's almost like your secret weapon that is not so secret because he's so good for the San Francisco 49ers. Deebo Samuel also, I think he had 5 catches. Wasn't a big game for Deebo, but I do think for Deebo Samuel, we saw a lot of the times, I believe 3 times against Pittsburgh on Sunday, where he was making the Deebo Samuel play of not the end around, not the screen. I saw no screens today. Interesting scheme for Kyle Shanahan, but for Deebo Samuel, a lot of, fighting for the ball over the middle, coming back for passes by Purdy, and it's kind of, I don't want to say saving his quarterback, but, finding his own play, fighting for the football, and really showing his all-pro-ness. Now, this was not a Deebo Samuel take over the game outcome, but what it was Deebo Samuel playing within the offense, making the big play that on paper isn't going to show up, but he's also saving a 3rd and 7 or saving or catching a 15-yard pass where he comes back for the ball and cuts off a defender and keeps the drive moving. And it's stuff like that where if that was a player like on the Giants or on the Broncos or the Raiders, you go, that was a great play. But on this team, you go, yeah, that was cool. Because it happens every single Sunday. And so for Deebo Samuel, I think a good week 1 for him. But, seeing, and this is one thing I want to hit on here, is that seeing Deebo Samuel play well, but also being overshadowed by Brandon Aiyuk and Christian McCaffrey, it just continues to, like, George Kittle. Where was George Kittle today after, one 4th down conversion on the first drive? He really was nowhere to be found, but it's almost because San Francisco didn't need him. And what I mean by that is this team is so loaded, they usually only need one of their stars to show up. It's house money when 2 of them do, like what happened on Sunday against Pittsburgh and Aiyuk and McCaffrey. But there's going to be days where it's Ayuk's great and McCaffrey's great. Then it's McCaffrey and Kittle, then McCaffrey and Deebo, then it's Deebo and Aiyuk. And there's just so many ways to beat you or with this offense and it's almost like, in previous years, all the kudos, all the credit went to Kyle Shanahan. He's scheming guys open and he's just an amazing offensive mind. And all those things are true, but it was almost like, Shanahan was getting so much credit, and while he deserves much of that, this year and even the end of last season felt like where Shanahan, well, yes, is all those things I've already said, he now has weapons to where when his scheme fails, they can pick up the pieces. He also now, because his weapons are so good around or in his offense with McCaffrey and Aiyuk and Kittle and Deebo and other players like Jawan Jennings and Brock Purdy, obviously, where it's almost like because there's so many weapons that Shanahan doesn't necessarily have to rely or, have to scheme all these players open. And the team's success is not, reliant solely on Shanahan being in his bag constantly. Shanahan himself becomes another weapon on this team where it's like, oh my goodness, on paper they have Aiyuk and they have Kittle and then McCaffrey and Brock Purdy's playing well and Trent Williams and a good offensive line, and then it's like, oh my God, there's Kyle Shanahan still. Like, how can we stop this? And looking at the defenses and looking at how week 1 of the season stacked up, there were teams that had 5 yards on offense through a half. The Pittsburgh Steelers didn't get a first down until the last drive prior to halftime. There was a point in this game, San Francisco had 200 plus yards and Pittsburgh had 1. San Francisco on all fronts was crushing the Steelers all day long. The first 5 drives of this game, the Niners defense allowed 15 total plays, 1 total yard, 0 first downs, 4 3-and-outs as my dog sneezes behind me, had 2 sacks, and 1 takeaway. Pittsburgh, they looked out of rhythm. There was a point in this game where, and going back to the Niners offense, they were playing so well that Pittsburgh defense is having mini team meetings of pent-up frustration of like, how do we stop these guys? We don't know what to do. And for all the talk of Patrick Peterson and Cam Hayward saying, we got to do our job, we got to tackle, they have tells. It was almost like they had the wrong game plan. They had the wrong scheme. And that's the part of the team you thought was going to show up, and it didn't. Now, TJ Watt certainly did. He had a great game, but he had 2 forced fumbles and 3 sacks today. He was great for the Steelers. But outside of that, nothing. Like, this, and I don't want, the Steelers are a good team with a great head coach who's won a championship with a strong defensive line, and it felt like all the hyping up or all the talk of, wanting to give them credit and giving them a chance was wasted. And you shouldn't feel like that, knowing that next week against the Browns, whoever they're playing, the Raiders too, I think in week 3, that they should play better against those teams. But it's to show you that the Niners today, they made a good or supposed to be good team in the Steelers look really, really bad. In San Francisco, along with Dallas and even to a certain extent Philadelphia, they proved in week 1 that there's those 3 teams, then everybody else. And I could even argue that Philadelphia wasn't great against New England, that it's Dallas and San Francisco, then it's everybody else. And minus Dallas' performance, San Francisco looked like the best team in football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's a non-divisional opponent, and Dallas played a divisional game against the Giants. Like, this is a game where, had Pittsburgh or had the Niners played the Cardinals or even the Seahawks or maybe even the Rams in week 2, and we'll certainly see next Sunday, that we could be leaving more impressed. Had San Francisco put their foot to the ground on the gas more and more, we could be looking and sitting back saying, oh my goodness, book your trip to Vegas right now because this team looks unbeatable. And, it makes my prediction of them being 11-6 foolish. Now, again, it's week 1, but this team looked even better than I thought they'd be coming into the first game of the season. And that's crazy to think about when Nick Bosa did almost nothing. He had 3 pressures all day, and that was it. They had 5 sacks, mind you. Hargrave had 1 in his first game. He had a really good game today. Armstead and Hargrave pushed that pocket nonstop. Kerry Hyder got a sack today, but Drake Jackson is easily the star of the defense besides Hufanga and Mooney Ward. Drake Jackson got his first sack since week 6 last year against the Falcons. Got his first sack in the first drive in this game. Ended with 3 total sacks, and all the conversations of, can the San Francisco 49ers have that star across from Nick Bosa? It was almost like Nick Bosa didn't play in this game. Now, he certainly did, and if you watch the film, you'll see his impact. But on the box score, when it comes to getting sacks and tackles for losses, Drake Jackson was the star. And to see a young player like him when there's question marks of can he be this, this at least competent and consistent edge rusher across from Bosa, who's going to step up. It's week one, but he did silence a lot of those critics, or answer a lot of the questions we certainly have about what's going to happen on the opposite side of Bosa this year. And for him, he already matched his season total in sacks last year in one game. We know he's bendy. We know he's good. We know he has potential as a second round pick in 2021 or 2022, excuse me. But Drake Jackson, excuse me, he looked phenomenal. When you're attacking just aggressively and continually, you're going to win. And for Drake Jackson, knowing he is going to have the literal easiest job of anybody in the NFL with Armstead, Hargrave, and Bosa lined up next to him, it's good to know that, well, yes, Pittsburgh's tackles aren't the best in football. He can beat an NFL tackle over and over and over again and, make someone like Clelin Ferrell not have to play. Or, when Nick Bosa doesn't have a big game, you have Drake Jackson stepping up, while Bosa's like, it's my first game back from holding out the entirety of the offseason. But the defense was great in this game. Mooney Ward, interception early. It felt like every time the Steelers were building momentum, whether it was that first drive, 3 and out, where it felt like that, okay, they want to answer your touchdown here. It was boom, interception. When it felt like that, they finally scored their first touchdown, San Francisco comes out of the second half, and then boom, Christian McCaffrey, big home run play, and it demoralizes Pittsburgh over and over and over again. We're to a point of, there were no terrible towels being waved around. I can't talk. Waved around. And it got to a point where you can physically see the fans giving up. You can see the players giving up. There was a play in this game where George Pickens wasn't targeted, and you can see him on the sideline shaking his head with his head down. And you can tell that there was just so much hype around the Pittsburgh Steelers. They just got freaking run through by a Mack truck in the San Francisco 49ers. This is a young team in Pittsburgh who wants to make a statement, who wants to kind of prove their worth in a strong AFC North. San Francisco said, nah. Like, you have no business being on the same field as us. The Niners defense totaled in this game 30 pressures on 51 of Pickett's dropbacks. He was in constant duress. Hargrave had 5. Drake Jackson had 5, along with his 3 sacks. Armstead, Bosa, Farrell, Kinlaw had 3. Kerry Hyder, Austin Bryant, Dre Greenlaw had 2. Fred Warner and Kevin Givens had 1. 30 pressures, 2 interceptions, 5 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, 8 tackles for losses. And again, barring, had that Dallas Cowboys game never happened, the San Francisco 49ers are sitting here saying, we are still the best defense in football. And knowing you lost just an incredible defensive coordinator in DeMeco Ryans, you want to give Steve Wilks a ton of credit today coming in and just, it was almost like this team on both sides, Purdy, McCaffrey, Aiyuk, on the defense, Warner, Drake Jackson, Hargrave, Mooney Ward, Hufanga, those guys didn't miss a beat. It felt like that this team was plucked from that Eagles game and placed right into this game with the healthy Brock Purdy. And you can just tell that this team is so excited. Like, they have been waiting and just, chomping at the bit to get to week one, knowing that, we are going to be in the playoffs, and we are going to show the world that this all-in mentality is going to play off, and it certainly did today. Their stars came out to play offense and defensively. Their head coach and defensive coach came to play today. Fred Warner was annihilating running backs. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, who are not bad, they had no chance. It felt like any time there was a hole created or looked like there was space to run, Fred Warner swooped in and said, nope. And he was knocking guys who probably have 40 pounds on him off their feet. I mean, it was almost like, again, like a Mack truck through the hole, boom. And Najee Harris was like, what do I do? Najee Harris in this game, like we talked, previewing the game that, the run defense is worrisome. Bosa certainly helps, but they're going to need Hargrave and Kinlaw and Armstead to step up, and those guys definitely did. But Fred Warner made a statement earlier that you are not getting past these linebackers. And I can only think of one big run in this game. Now, there was one drive for Pittsburgh when San Francisco's defense started playing off of them before the end of the first half, and penalties happened and things certainly went the wrong way for San Francisco on that drive. But Fred Warner had a pass block that led to an interception, had a bunch of huge stops towards the line of scrimmage. He was awesome. Again, Armstead and Hargrave were just crushing Pittsburgh's interior offensive line today. Hufanga freaking cracked the you-know-what out of Pat Freiermuth in the end zone on that final drive before the end of the first half. Obviously got his big interception later. And this team is getting takeaways still, and they're also scoring points. One thing that has hindered this team in the previous years, not last year, but before last year, was they don't get takeaways. When your defense is good enough to get you takeaways, you are allowing a highly powered machine in this offense get more points, put games away earlier, giving your stars rest when you have a long season ahead of you. I do have a problem, though, with the way the players were used today, and that being the offense especially. Look, hey, Kyle, you're up by 23. Why is Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy still playing? Now, beginning of the fourth quarter, fine. 5-6 minutes left. Why are they out there? I would much rather see Jordan Mason, who got no carries, and Elijah Mitchell, who had a few, be running the football. I love Christian McCaffrey. I have him in fantasy. I'd rather him be healthy for the entirety of the season than having him getting 2 more carries and 10 more yards. Like, let the guys rest. They have a long season ahead of them. They were resting Debo and Kittle, which was great, knowing that Kittle was hurt leading up to this game. But Kyle, just gave your guys a rest. I know you still have PTSD from 28-3, but it's okay to take your foot off the pedal. I get the Lions game 2 years ago makes you worry somewhat, but come on now. Like, Kyle, this was not the Lions game. You had this game in the bag at the end of the first half, and if not, when you were up 27-7 prior to Jake Moody's third field goal of the day, which Jake Moody, all the talk of, what's the kicker position going on? Like, what's going on here? He was like, just football, guys. Like, preseason doesn't matter. I make kicks when they matter. It does seem like the kicker position, albeit in week 1, is certainly under wraps, and Jake Moody's got that taken care of. And, sweat off our brow when it comes to the kicker. But I'm telling you guys, this Niners team, and you know it, I know it, the world has seen it for a year, at least a year, if not the past, 2019, 2021, last year. Now, they're here to play. They're here to win. There are some concerns, though, or, if you want to say negative things, I guess, is that Colton McKivitz didn't have his best game, was good early. I want to make it a point to say that the offensive line held up very well early, but let's be honest here, when you are lining up against a defensive player of the year winner 2 years ago and an elite edge rusher in TJ Watt, even if you are a star right tackle like Lane Johnson is in Philadelphia, you're going to lose a few times. And Colton McKivitz did happen to lose a lot in the second half, and it led to near turnovers and plenty of sacks on Pittsburgh's behalf. But, I do wonder, like, for Colton McKivitz, my concern isn't that he's going to be bad or that this team has to go get a right tackle. That's not my concern. I think, like, a player like Colton McKivitz is someone who is going to go back, watch the film, and get better. He'll analyze it. He'll talk to Trent Williams. How can I improve? That's not my concern. My worry is that if this is an issue, that if this isn't an outlier of it's TJ Watt, what do you expect? That we're going to come into a place where we are going to regret not drafting a right tackle. I'm already at that position. We already saw today Trent Williams got hurt for a short period of time, and Jalen Moore played one snap in his absence. that shows you that Trent Williams can go down at any point in time during the year, and not having some tackle depth is a little concerning, and has been, for me at least, for the past 2 months, as I've been yelling at it through this microphone for for that length of time. But Colton McKivitz, not a great game. Again, okay in the first half, held up enough to give this team a 20-point cushion, mind you. But there was a point in time where we're sitting back saying, okay, is right tackle an actual concern here, where the entirety of the offseason, it was definitely a point of conversation, but playing TJ Watt, is that going to continue into next week against the Rams? Who knows? Other things that kind of caught my attention was the nickel cornerback position. Was, I thought, coming into this game, going to be Isaiah Oliver, but that didn't happen. Lenore started at nickel. Ambry Thomas played on the outside across from Mooney Ward, and I don't know, for 5 drives it held up, but until that last drive where Pittsburgh put 7 points on the board before the end of the first half, uh, that was enough for Steve Wilkes and Kyle Shanahan. They yanked Ambry Thomas out, moved Lenore back on the outside, and brought Oliver back in. Now, I'm not sure if that was a a mismatch issue. We saw Deontay Johnson get hurt in this game. I'm not sure, had that happened in the first half, would that change have still occurred? Who knows? But it does seem like that Ambry Thomas, while there was confidence in him to start, we now find ourselves, albeit in one game, sitting back saying, okay, where does our cornerback depth sit? Is Oliver going to play and start against the Rams next week, or is Thomas going to get a second go round on the outside? But this team has 5 cornerbacks now. It's Womack and Thomas. That's your bench. And if Thomas is starting, you have Oliver. So definitely raises your eyebrows and says, okay, like, what's going on here with the secondary? But thankfully, we may have an answer in Jair Brown in 3 safety sets. He didn't play much on Sunday against Pittsburgh, but that could be, an option down the road. But right now, Colton McKivitz, an up and down game, and pretty much a down game in the second half. And, who's playing nickel? What's happening outside of Lenore in the secondary? And then the last thing is, this team had 11 penalties on Sunday. Now, some of them were undisciplined, that being, Lenore hitting Pickens out of bounds on that last strike before the end of the first half and giving them 15 extra yards. That's not something that's been an odd occurrence here in San Francisco. There's been a couple plays here or there where you're playing an opponent driving on you for the first time and they get a little chippy and, a flag gets thrown. I'm looking at the Chiefs game last year where Juwan Jennings is cheap shots a guy going out of bounds on a kick return. So it's not, uncommon here where when you get put against the wall, they start fighting each other and start pushing and shoving a little bit after the whistle has blown. But then you have the offensive line. Burford had a tough game with holdings and false starts in this game. And even Brendel, where it looked like San Francisco could have had another field goal, gets called for, I believe, a false start. If not a holding call, moves them back 5 yards and pushes them out of field goal range, and then leads to an incomplete pass on third down, where when in big games against Dallas and Philadelphia, whoever they're playing, against the Rams next week, you cannot move your offense out of scoring position. And if you're the Niners, at that point, while you're winning big, you want to see if Jake Moody can make a 56-yard field goal, give him a chance, and see what he can do come game time. So a lot of good in this game. Mooney Ward, really strong. Hufanga, a really good game, getting an interception where Hufanga, with an insane pitch to Gibson, got called back for a forward pass, but that was awesome. And it's even better to know that, he looks like Troy Polamalu with the hair, and knowing that he's playing Polamalu's former team, making plays like Polamalu used to do in Pittsburgh's pretty cool to see, almost like a full circle deja vu moment out there with Hufanga in the secondary. But he pitches it to Gibson, and Gibson, I'm like, pitch it back to Oliver for the touchdown. You can get a pick 6 here. It'd be one of the best plays in recent Niners history, and definitely the highlight of this game that already had 2 amazing plays offensively. So there was so much to love in this game, so much to take away and say, my goodness, could this team be better than we think? It's week 1. We have so much and such a long season that's ahead of us. But look, there are going to be games where we just sit back in awe of this team. There's going to be games where we sit back and go, oh my goodness, we are watching history, where this team is so star studded, so bought into winning a championship. And it seems like that's affecting not just the players, but the coaching staff. Kyle Shanahan going forward on fourth down early in this game, trying to steal some points on the road. I love that. Brock Purdy talking crap about Patrick Peterson. I love that. And also just coming out there and almost sending a message to the NFL at 10 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast saying, are you awake now? The best team in the league is here. We have not missed a step. We're going for it all. Our entire offseason plan was signing the best defensive lineman in the free agency class in Javon Hargrave, re-signing our defensive player of the year, getting a fourth-round pick for our failed quarterback prospect in Trey Lance, going all in on Brock Purdy, and saying we are going for a championship right now. This team at this point in time is 1-0. They're tied for first place, but really second place in the NFC West after one game because the Rams beat the Seahawks today. But they play the Rams in week 2, and I cannot wait. I hope you had a wonderful week 1. There is so much to dissect and dive into previewing that game. That podcast will come out later on this week. Look, football's back. Niners football is back, and it kicked off in the best way possible. A victory where nobody got hurt, where the offense looked amazing, and the defense looked like the number one unit in the NFL again. This football season is going to be incredible, and the San Francisco 49ers look like an elite roster from top to bottom, coaching staff and all, and they look like they're driven and ready to go all the way this year. And I hope you'll join me along this journey, whether it's here on the podcast or on Twitter or on Instagram or even on 95.7 The Game. I want to remind you that you can follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. If you want to go to any game this year, concert, NBA, NFL, MLB, whatever you want to do with your time and money, if you want to go to an event, most likely a sporting event, a Niner game perhaps, use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Also, you want to buy some merch? Well, you cannot buy this amazing Mitchell and Ness jersey I have on right now. You can buy some amazing Niners gear at Fanatics.com. Use our link up above or down below to get your gear there and support the show in the meantime. Again, Niners win 30-7. Could have been 40, could have been 50, could have been 60. I'm hyped off of week 1 and so excited for what this season has in store for us. Week 2 is next Sunday, 1 p.m. at Levi's South at SoFi Stadium. Take that stadium over like you took over the formerly known Heinz Field out there in Pittsburgh, and I can't wait to talk to you then. Again, stay tuned and also stay in touch on social media. It's Niners content all day long. I want to ask you one more thing. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Please leave that review. You can always take back your like if you want to in 3 or 4 days. It still helps the show. I hope you had a great week 1. San Francisco 49ers start the season off 1-0 with week 2 in our sights. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching on YouTube. My name is Sterling Bennett. And until next time, stay faithful.